please, I hope Trump will lose his majority. Thank you for your attention. I will be of service in any way possible to right these wrongs. I love when constituents don't only point out what's wrong, but stand up and say, I will be in service. Let me know how I can help. Your voice is helping tonight. Speaking to these issues is helping tonight. I know my Senate colleague is here. If she has a question, I will yield while retaining the floor.
Mr. President.
The senator from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to my colleague from New Jersey for yielding for a question. And I want to just start by thanking my colleague for who's one of my dearest friends in the Senate, for using his voice in such a powerful way over the many, many hours that you've been holding the Senate floor. And I know you well enough to know that you are not doing this because of your belief in the power of your voice. You are doing this because of your belief in the power of all of the voices that you've been amplifying all through the night, and your belief of the importance that the millions of Americans who are so frightened and concerned and horrified by what they see this administration doing, and wanting to feel like there is somebody here that is fighting for them and that is listening to them. And the way in which you are reading these letters today and all through the night, Senator Booker, I think is a tribute to your respect for all of those Americans. And so I'm so grateful for that. And I wanted to take a moment, if I could, to ask you to yield for a question related to what you've been talking about. You know, and I certainly agree with you that these are not normal times in our nation, and as elected officials, it is our duty to speak up and to fight back against the abuses and the overreach of this administration, and to raise up our voices, raise up the voices of our constituents who, as I said, are both frightened and furious about what's happening. So my question to you, Senator Booker, is about some of the Trump administration's recent actions regarding immigration. And my question is in three parts. First, I think that we can all agree that our current immigration system in this country is broken. It is not working well for anyone. It's not working well for American businesses that depend on a global talent pool. It is not working well for families who want to reunite with their loved ones. And it is not working well at all for those who seek refuge from persecution and believe in the promises that are carved into the Statue of Liberty. And to my colleague, I ask these questions and I think about these issues, about the shortcomings of our immigration system as a senator from Minnesota, where our meat processing sector relies so much on immigrant labor, where the University of Minnesota is a beacon for international students studying science and technology and agriculture, where the resorts in Minnesota rely on folks from all over the country to come and make them work, the little mom and pop 12 cabin operations up on lakes in northern Minnesota, and the manufacturers who rely on, as I said, the best and the brightest from all over the world coming to serve in our state and serving our economy. And I think we know, my colleague from New Jersey, that there have been real and serious bipartisan attempts at comprehensive immigration reform debated in this body. And while I might not have agreed with everything in these proposals, I suspect you might not as well, I think we both, I'm sure, strongly believe that immigration is an issue that merits real debate and real policy solutions. Our colleague who is here on the floor with us this morning, Senator Murphy from Connecticut, has worked so hard to find real bipartisan solutions. And I believe that comprehensive immigration reform needs to ensure our national security. It needs to provide a fair and workable path for immigrants who want to come and contribute to the American dream, which is what truly makes this country great. But here's the rub. The Trump administration's recent actions show that they are not interested in serious policy reforms that would make Americans safer or make our immigration system work more efficiently and fairly. Instead, what I think we can see is this president has prioritized using our immigration system as a tool to restrict First Amendment freedoms, to subvert due process, and to further weaken America's global standing with our allies and our regional partners as he seeks to emulate the authoritarian regimes that he so openly admires. There's just one example. In recent weeks, we've seen a number of international students targeted for arrest and deportation merely on the basis of their pro-Palestinian advocacy. Now, these are young people who played by all the rules. They've entered this country with permission in order to further their educations and have not been accused of or charged of any criminal activity. Their views on the war in Gaza may differ sharply from mine or others, but I believe that the First Amendment guarantees them the right to express those views without facing punishment or reprisal from our government. Nonetheless, the Trump administration has admitted that they are doing exactly that, seeking to punish lawfully present immigrants, in some cases even green card holders, because of the political views that they've expressed. The Secretary of State has invoked a rarely used section of statute that allows him to unilaterally designate for removal any alien who may cause, and I quote, potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences. And if that's not enough, many of these arrests have been carried out in a manner that seems calculated to maximize fear and intimidation in immigrant and activist communities. Here's an example to my colleague for him to respond to. I want to take the case of the recent arrest of Rumaysa Özerkök, a Turkish graduate student at Tufts University, who was studying the relationship between child development and our social media saturated, globally connected world. She is here on a valid student visa. She is not accused of any crime. And by all accounts, she is a loved and valued member of the Tufts community. Her only purported offense was being one of 4 co-authors of an op-ed in the student newspaper that urged the administration of Tufts to engage with student calls to divest from businesses with ties to Israel and the IDF. And for that offense, her visa was revoked with no notice, and she was arrested on the street and spirited more than 1,500 miles away, which is likely a violation of a judge's order to await her probable deportation. And I'm sure many of my colleagues, including my colleague from New Jersey, has seen the video of her arrest, which was captured by a neighbor's security camera, and it is utterly chilling. She is surrounded by officers in plain clothes with no visible insignia, no markings at all on their clothing. She is handled roughly. Her belongings are taken away from her. Her hands are cuffed before being loaded into an unmarked car. It is no exaggeration that her arrest looks like a kidnapping, one that you might expect to see in Moscow rather than in the streets of Boston. And of course, the terror of what she experienced is horrible to think about, but I also think about the thousands and thousands and thousands of other students here with a student visa or other lawful means who see this and think to themselves, this could happen to me. This could be something that happens to my roommate or my student or anybody. It seems like such a breakdown in the rule of law and the way that our country should operate. So I would like to ask my colleague, does this seem normal or appropriate for federal law enforcement officers of the United States to conduct routine arrests in plain clothes with unmarked cars and with this overwhelming show of force for individuals who pose no obvious physical threat to those law enforcement? And furthermore, is this not exactly the sort of operation that you would order if your goal is to intimidate and dissuade immigrant and activist communities from exercising their constitutional rights to free speech? Does punishing people for their political speech seem consistent with American democratic values? I can't believe that we would think that it would be consistent. And I wonder if my colleague from New Jersey would like to respond in any way to this.
I want to respond deeply. I first want to thank my colleague for being here in the morning. She's one of my colleagues I confided in when I told her sort of I was enough for me. I needed to do something different, and she readily encouraged me to be here on the floor for what is now about 13 hours. And she has encouraged me, she has encouraged my heart, and is just one of my dear friends, and I'm just so grateful to see her this morning. I want to say something before I begin answering her question. In my home county, the one I grew up in Bergen County, there's a family, the Alexanders, whose son, Idan, is an American who is being held by Hamas, and he is being likely tortured and in trauma and in pain. He's a U.S. citizen, he's an American. I had a friend give me this recently, a young man who was driving me around, this ribbon that I will often use to keep in my pocket and remind me of him and our determination to bring him home. To bring him home, I want his family to know that stays center in my thoughts. And I also feel, because of so many New Jerseyans who are affected by this crisis, who have lost family members in that region, that we must bring peace. And then my friend, Senator Smith, asked this question about, which is a real test, because when you disagree with someone's statements so much, but the very nature of the First Amendment, what makes this document so precious is that it says that no matter how reprehensible your speech is, this document says you have the right to say it.